are still having. I'm not in the union anymore, but I was like the representative of the debates, and we're still having conversations on how to, how you say it, to keep track of the things happening now. I think that's a great example of how impactful youth organizations can be.
Yes, actually, I think I forgot to present myself more. I'm part of ADIFE, which is the African Diaspora Youth Forum in Europe, and from ENA as well, the European Network Against Racism. But today I will represent ADIFE in terms of what the youth actually, what the impact of the youth political organizations can have. What you said is pretty insightful in the terms of if you don't take the lead actually to make your voice heard, you don't have really a seat at the table. So what we really need as a role, what role we could play, I'm sorry, is to be maybe more vocal on what the youth needs right now actually. Because what youth needed yesterday might not be the same as what the youth is experiencing nowadays actually, in terms of policies, in terms of student favors, etc. So this is really important, and because when we gather in organizations, what we can do is to make sure that our interest as youth is really represented, whether in policies or in other aspects of life. And I have an example actually that we had in ADIFE. In the beginning, ADIFE was supposed to be just a one-time thing, just to discuss about the AU and the AU policies and how they could really, create some bridge, but economical bridge between those two continents, without taking into account maybe that the diaspora was here too, and that the diaspora could bring some insight, actually, something new to the table. And we decided to create that platform that really gathered a lot of organizations, a lot of youth organizations throughout Europe, to say, listen, we are organized, we have been existing for 3 years, we have been putting in place different entrepreneurs projects in order to be sure that we can create some kind of link with our continent, Africa actually, and we really want to come with some recommendations for you actually to take into account. And this is really how ADIFE became something more structural and became like a real platform that exists now for 5 years. So this is something impactful for me. So we took the stand, we have created our own recommendations, and we came with something that was really concrete, and it was taken into account. So as long as you really believe in what you do and you have the right persons around you to make it happen, I think it's really important.
And I think that was not
exactly.
Would you like to add anything to this?
Yeah, I think I'll just reflect on the question in more general terms about why it's important that young people and particularly youth political organization pitch in topics like that, because they are tomorrow's leaders, like in the party, but also when it's not like they don't come from the party, because I mean, in our organization, we're a political organization, very much so, but we are not we are not linked to any party, and we are above party lines. Some of us are into parties, and some of us are just like Jeff representative, but it's still taking its stand to be in a political organization, and we are still and can still be considered tomorrow's leaders, because if we don't take positions in parties, then we will take positions in I don't know, the civil service, or into companies that would help us shape tomorrow's societies. And I mean, we cannot really have so much impact on the political class the way it stands. I mean, there have been things that have been done, like sometimes not so well, but there's so little things that we can do about it now. Whereas with the young people, on the other hand, they're still learning, they're still shaping their minds about what they want and what they're hoping for tomorrow's society. And those youth political organizations help creating a culture, so adding values, adding being aware of challenges that need to be addressed by the political class. If we want that to be relevant, then we have to start on the level of the young people, because when you're a politician as such, you might have forgot how is it to listen to what the people might need. And some of those young people are already quite powerful, because some of them are quite influential already, quite close to the actual politicians. And I think we have this this opportunity, this window of opportunity that we have at the moment, that we are the so-called Generation Y, that nobody really understands what we want for the future. And I think the impact can be bigger now than it's ever been, because we basically are the only people that truly understand what we need for tomorrow's society, and for once, we have the possibility to speak it up. So I think the benefits is that you can have fresh ideas, because that's what you're supposed to be having. You're young, like the entire world is waiting for you to have fresh ideas and fresh stakes on issues. You can question the pre-established concepts if you want to deconstruct them, and you want to explain and make a case of why you think we should be doing things differently. Well, youth political organization can help you doing that, and you can be brave, because you don't have a political mandate as such yet. So you can basically throw all the ideas that you think might be working, and then it will be up to tomorrow's politicians to try to implement them.
I think we all agree on the amazing benefits of the organizations, and we can indeed have a big impact as a young generation. However, we do see an underrepresentation of people of African descent and people of color. So perhaps if you'd like to share any of your own experiences or accounts with the issues and barriers that there are for young people to find their way to these organizations.
So for me, this was kind of a hard question, because based on my experience, I don't think I really faced a lot of challenges. I never really had the feeling that people were holding me back for my ambitions, for my engagements. But I think I was born and raised in a quite stable family, a caring family. So I had this solid base from which I could start, from which I could work. So it was quite easy. Of course, not easy. I worked hard for it. It's not that I didn't do anything to be where I am now. But I do think I had some more, maybe not privileges, but it was for me more easy to do the things I'm doing now than I think for many others. But I do experience some little things in life, especially in school, but those weren't really traumatizing things. But I do think I can, like, and then people call me a role model, but I tend to say I'm not, because I didn't face these challenges. But I do think I can be this spokesperson, this intermediate person to the connecting point between me and between policy and young people of color, young women, because young people often look for someone who looks like them, with whom they can relate. So I think for me, that's, yeah, I can be this kind of person. I still remember 2 years ago when I was in an open meeting at the Flemish School Student Union, someone came to me, it was a new girl, and she said to me like, yeah, I actually came because I saw you in the newspaper. So that was a nice thing to hear. She wants to come because she saw someone of color. She saw like, okay, I can do this as well. That's a nice thing to hear. So that's kind of the last one question.
Have you had any other experiences?
Actually, I think yes, because really my passion for civic engagement and politics came pretty later actually in my life. I was already done with even university, so it's not something that I really experienced while studying. actually, what was the challenge for me as a person of color, me myself, is maybe finding the balance between traditions, if I may say, and my standing for what I believe in. So I wasn't really, and what I think it's common to a lot of people of color, young people of color, it's you are sometimes start to blend into the society actually. So not make more, noise about what you really want, what you really experiencing that is different from the others, because somehow I think you feel afraid of being different because nobody else, in most cases, nobody else will understand. And you learn how to speak for yourself throughout times. And the other thing that I've seen that is changing now, and I think it's a good thing, it's how taking the habit to regroup, for example, in school regroup, um, maybe per as young people of color. This is something that I didn't see. And I think it creates a kind of synergy that brings you, maybe, I don't know if it's being at ease, but you exchange with people who have the same challenges as you have, and it brings you more and more confidence maybe to speak up for your people, kind of, and speak for yourself. And this will be like the main challenges that I would think is important, and visibility as well. Because we tend to blend, we never created this kind of sense of belonging to something, something that really makes you proud to be who you are, different, and that you can actually be yourself in a diverse society without being like the others. And this is something that is really changing. So I don't know if I can still call it a challenge because we're kind of finding the solution to it, but I think those were the main challenges.
And so you agree?
Yeah, I was agreeing, and then I thought it was funny to hear that like you might have not felt like it was like a struggle. For me, it was really like I mean, I come from like a mixed couple. My parents are like my mom is black and my dad is white. So for me, it was all well in the world, and it was just normal. And then I reached out to school, and then even worse when I studied law in France. And later when I got into like being a lawyer, getting involved into politics and stuff, and then I actually like reality just hit me, and I was like, I'm always going to be the only one. And I mean, and then people, like highlight it, make jokes about it, and I mean, eventually you laugh about it, but at some point you're just like, yeah, I'm always going to be the only one. So yeah, this reaching out to the outside world is just like, oh yeah, I mean, I didn't think it was something so specific about me, just having a different color. And then when you enter the world, you realize that that's how people like recognize you, like that you are that one. And then so first, like this lack of diversity is something that, I mean, I didn't really pay attention to it. I made peace with like being the only one all the time. But then I had to think about it when it started questioning my identity, because you being different from everyone else is actually questioning your identity all the time, when it's not questioning everybody else's identity. I mean, if you have like a room full of white people, then just why we don't really care where they're coming from, it's fine. But then since you are that one person that looks different, you're like, oh, but then where do you come from? And sometimes it's just about being curious, but I mean, then you have to think about how do you feel into all that, because for instance, I had never really thought about myself being like a colored person. I just never thought about it. It was just like, people have different colors, like different complexion, like it's just the way it is. And then you're like, oh, okay, so what does it say about me? And even does it have to say something about me? Like, do I have to be framed into you're a colored person, so you get those questions, and you get this questioning about who you are and how you feel, and how you feel with your own roots and stuff, and that's sort of like an identity quest that you have to go through, that I'm not sure that like all people in general have to go to. Then there is integration, is that how do you integrate into like a group that doesn't have to face the same kind of struggle, and I think it's really helpful when you have other people that, even though that they're not facing the same issues, can actually understand what you're facing and actually push you to, yeah, it's normal that you're having like those questions. It's so normal that sometimes you might feel like that, and you should just try to foster it instead of trying to hide it a little bit and trying to, I don't know, like, it's not about feeling sorry about it, but you're a bit like, as you were saying, you're a bit like trying to not make more noise or trying to like not be more vocal than the rest, just because you don't want people to think like the two things are related. And then eventually it comes about like, how do you like make the most of it? How do you understand that this can actually be an asset? And how like do you work on that to be like, okay, I look different, like it's not a big deal, but apparently it is. So since it looks like it's a big deal, what do I make of it to make sure that, I don't know, we can talk about these things, or to make sure that my organization gets more diverse, or to make sure that, I don't know, eventually I heard the name role model being mentioned, but it's a bit like that. Like if you want to be a more inclusive society, you have to have to show inclusiveness. Otherwise, you can still say you're an inclusive society, but especially when you're a young person and you're looking for things that might help you building up your own self and your own life, you look for role models. And I think that this entire path eventually should lead us to trying to understand how can we make the most of it and how can we be helpful in the public debate about it.
Tying into questioning, is it really different by looking different, and what do we add to these organizations? The next question would be, why do we think this inclusivity of young people of African descent is so important in organizations, with the emphasis on working groups and task forces in the working
Following the same board.
I'm not sure whether I can give a very good answer on this, but I think it's maybe kind of obvious. We live in a democratic country, and that in a real democracy you shouldn't let a homogeneous group of people decide about the life of every citizen. The group in power makes decisions on behalf of everybody, and their decisions reflect on every person, reflect on every person. So if only a small amount of perspective will be heard, yeah, the group in power will only discuss what they think they should discuss, I think. What the group in power decides, produces, is shaped by the composition of the group. And since individuals, I think, can only truly speak from their own experiences, the contributions of, for example, people of color are systematically excluded from important decision-making processes, I think. So that's what I thought about this question.
Wow. Actually, I was thinking about an example to make it maybe more striking. I was taking the case of maybe some countries where you have poor female representation in the government. And we could have seen that in those countries not that long ago. They have taken some measures, impacting women and women's health and women's body, without the consent and even the consult of women in those cases. And for me, it's exactly the same thing. You could never find a society, like she said, that is homogeneous, that is taking into account all different aspects and situations of the society, actually. Like she said, you can't relate to something that you never actually lived somehow. So without that, I don't know how you can even like have a proper democratic program that is like for the interest of everyone in the society. And for me, the only key word, why do I think it's important, is representation, actually. This is the only thing we are fighting for me. Whether it's in politics, whether it's in the economy, whether it's in higher positions, you want to see representation, you want to see people looking like you, that you can, look up to. You can call role model, actually. That's it. For me, when I really started to think about, like, looking at women like, I don't know, Michelle Obama or the new OEF in French, I don't know what Polish general secretary. It's like those women represent something that I could really see myself becoming one day. Not only because they are women, but also because they are black women. They come from maybe a different situation, but they kind of find a way to somewhere that they can really fight for a civic society, for people, and it's really bringing the same passion for the youth. I think this is why you have some youth council. They haven't been created just for fun. They have been created because we want to consult the youth about policy impacting youth. And I think this is actually the most important thing, is being more and more inclusive, whether it's about being black, about being from African descent, whether being young. It's really important to see those two in politics.
First, I think it's like, as it was already mentioned, it represents a fair amount of the population on this continent. Whether that's out of African countries, whether that's the West Indies or like the Caribbean territories, like it's actually a lot of people that are like that we talk about when we talk about people of African descent. And the fact that there are so many with so few representation, it's something that should push us to try to have more of these young people into youth political organization, because then, I mean, those people, they're huge potential voters. And then what happens is that they turn their back on elections and on political life in general, because they just feel like they're not represented. And I mean, I've heard that even in my family context, at some point when you ask, I don't know, some of your relatives if they're going to work for the European election, and they're like, some of them are going to vote because they go to vote all the time, and then that's just the way it is. And some of them are like, yeah, they would vote for like local election and national election, but then the European election, like it's just like for other people, and it's far away, like it is for any other kind of person. But it's also far away because if you look like the politicians like on the European scene, it is pretty frightening. Like you don't feel like those people can represent your interests when you see like that they come like mostly from the same classes. So that is one thing. Then the second one I think is that we have to involve them, because the day when we will have like people black people being very represented, it will show like the world and ourselves that we have overcome like a past that sometimes is not that much of a long time ago, that has been like traumatizing for both sides. And I think that this is like the taboo that nobody really wants to tackle whenever we talk about representation of colored people. But at some point we have to tackle it. We have to say, we have to get over like history, and we have to get over it in a constructive way. And I think the only constructive way to get over it is to involve everyone in the political debate and to welcome everyone at the table of decisions, which is far from being the case at the moment. And if we keep on doing like that, it stays like a trauma. Like there is no other way, because then you feel you have like a group of people just feeling excluded because of what happened like some centuries ago. And the third thing is that if you include young people of African descendants, it leads the way for a more integrated society in general, because we're starting with women. Then next are going to be the colored people. The next are going to be like the LGBT people. And then if you can do that with one group, it just means that we are ready to be able to do it for other groups. And then it's a big signal for other communities that things are moving, and then we can actually make things work in this regard. And last but not least, it's just proved that diversity is just more efficient. I mean, there has been studies into like very big companies that earn a lot of money, and why is diversity such a big topic at the moment in the private sector? It's not because there are charities and it's nice. It's just because it's been proven that if you want to be best in class, you have to have diversity, just because having people from different backgrounds and different mindset just make your company more productive. So if it works in the private sector, I highly doubt it wouldn't work on the public sphere.
I think we all agree on the importance, and we've talked about some barriers. I think we all see how having the few people who do get there act as role models can have a great impact. However, it's not just up to those people. We have to see organizations work on this as well. Have any of you seen organizations where you're active or in your environment act on this lack of representation? And what do they do, if so, and do you think it's an effective way that they go about this?
Well, yeah, I was president in 2016, 2017 of the Flemish School Student Union. So one of my key topics was like trying to solve this lack of underrepresentation of young people, young people of color, young women. And now it's really, now the union really actively strives, looks for all kinds of school students from different backgrounds, different courses, technical courses, general courses, boys, girls. And so they really try to have this healthy mix of people. So first of all, it's this inclusive attitude that, of course, you need to have as an organization. There's no official written rule in the union I was part of, but this attitude they how you say it, they took on that cause that there are now there's a more diverse group of students in the union. But of course I do think that can be more done, like not everybody is fond of it, but I think quota can be a good step.
Have you seen your organizations?
Well, like I said a little bit before, ADIFE was created in part to respond to that lack of diaspora visibility, but also lack of youth from the diaspora visibility on the EU level, of course. And I guess I would actually know the organizers of the EU summit of that year, because what they did is that they gathered like every 3 years now to do these recommendations, but that year, after some concerns were raised about the youth policies actually in Africa and the migration of issue actually coming up with the young people coming from Africa to Europe, concerns that were raised by national organization, national youth from the diaspora organization. They have decided that year actually to include us in the discussions and allow us also to come with a recommendation. This is really the big example coming in mind, because that year we had a whole day that we could organize sessions in terms of how we could see the policy evolving for the youth and by the youth actually, because one of the issues was economic poverty, but also educational poverty as well, in terms of we don't have enough university of qualities in some countries, which also bring people to leave their own countries. So this will be the right example that I could give, but also a recommendation that I will bring up here is for just different other society organizations in order to come to such a solution, to get to know every youth organization on the territory, whether it's on the Flemish side, Brussels, or Wallonie in Belgium, in the case of Belgium, and get to know them and see what are their impacts.
I think mainly this question is being targeted when it comes to the diversity question. I think like there are more organizations working on diversity in general rather than on this specific issue as such. But the two go together, because if you have a more diverse society or organization, then that means that you've solved your problem of underrepresentation. And I mean, like the European Youth Forum is doing quite a lot in this regard. And us as DEF, we have assessed that we would need to work a bit more on that. Then we came up with a project that is called the DIVE project, where we partner up with the Erasmus Student Network and IG, which are two other big European youth organizations, trying to first acknowledging that we struggle with this. This is, I think we have to be fair and we have to say it, because I think recognizing it and being fair to ourselves is already a step forward, because it's already realizing that there is an issue, and at the moment we don't really have the solution and we don't really know what to do to deal with this, but we are willing to do something about it. And I think that's the main first step and the first point, where some organizations and some people in organizations that have made this step, they're not there yet. Like, you hear that, like, there's no diversity problem, and I mean, I've heard that, like, whether that's in politics in general, or in specific organizations, it's specific. Like, first is acknowledging that we do have a problem, then trying to do whatever it takes to solve this. So this project is about first acknowledging that we should be doing something about it, and then identifying the barriers that prevent young people from being fully active European citizens. Because I mean, we work on the political sphere, so for us it's really important, and we've realized that the reason why so many young people are not active is just because there is this sense of belonging. This just doesn't exist. They don't really feel the link between EU politics and themselves and their everyday life. And so the idea is to make all that more accessible and more inclusive. So what we are trying to build is we're trying to make trainings. There have been already 2 trainings. Like, the next one is going to be in January, where we discuss the issues, try to identify what potential solution we could find. One other thing that we need to work on, and that's part of the project as well, is to create operational tools, like having a methodology. How do you make your organization more inclusive? What are the practical steps? Having a guide of good practice as well, some guidelines, like what should you keep in mind, how do you train your members to make them aware of these things, and then having all these things in mind when it comes to recruiting, like having a recruiting campaign that doesn't aim at the regular members we always have, but like that a bit broaden the perspective. So that is one project that we are very much working on. As I was mentioning, we also have this task force that we work on to try to see how we could discuss with other organizations that might have more experience than us in these questions, and how can we make this a visible topic to debate.
I think you've already given some recommendations, so perhaps I can open up the final question for recommendations for organizations to improve to anyone who would like to add, and then we can continue with the Q&A. So if anyone has...
Can you just repeat, because when she started, yes.
Oh, sorry. I'm just saying that they've already touched on some recommendations, which was the final question to deal with. So I'm opening up the question. If there are any recommendations for organizations to improve on reaching young people of color and of African descent, reaching inclusivity?
Yes, I have one idea. It's just an idea. My idea is why not trying to reach those African people from diaspora, already known, singers, players, in football, basketball maybe, and try to make a campaign to make them react, to make them not change their mind, but add value to the youth, because the youth has one of the panelists said, um, don't really have a role model. You know, they want to be in sport or music, singer or everything, but not, you know, something more. I mean, it's not to put them down. What they are doing is great, but we need everything. You cannot just be in entertainment and in sport. I mean, we have to be, you know, in everything, right? And so why not reach those people first, and then create a movement, mass movement? Because if we don't reach those people, they are already popular. They have, you know, media with them. They have, I mean, people already known with them and everything. You know, they have the media and everything. So if we try to do to impact without telling them first what we want to do, it would be, I mean, too much. It would be difficult. We need to talk to them, and they need to give back to the community, to our community something. I mean, there is a lack of giving back. I mean, when you succeed in those kind of, entertainment, for instance, it's like they just move out the community, and they don't know. They don't remember that they are from us. You know, they don't care about us anymore, and that's something that we have to change. And we need to call out those people and tell them, hey, listen, there are plenty of young people who need something to, you know, to reach another level to the society. So that's something that I want to add, if you can do something about it.
Would anyone else like to add, or if anyone has a question outside of the presentation?
I wouldn't just, like, first of all, let me thank all of you for organizing this. It's really amazing. We need way more just to make an impact even further, that discussion. So thank you very much, first of all, for that. My tuition will go to the entertainment world, because once again, that's exactly where we find the most black people, where the main story of black people is that their bodies, singing, in sports, being in all stuff like that. We all know that. I do believe it's one part, but I do believe that only giving one storyline is very, very dangerous for us, because that only reward us in the sense that this is what we do. This is what black people do. They do sports, they sing, and they act, and that's perfect. Just do that. That's good for you. I think it's dangerous somehow. I think we should also try to work a little bit more with student circles here in Belgium. We have a lot of universities, a lot of circles of African descent. But let's keep it real, we do not work together. Most of the time, they don't even talk to one another. Let's keep it real. And I think there is a lack of communication, as always. And now we just have the local elections. Darren was one of them. I was one of them. Someone else.
Yes.
Yeah, too. It's absolutely amazing, but it's not good enough. Let's keep it real. But we do have to celebrate what happened right now. We do have to celebrate that, because once again, what do we want? It's not really about diversity, I think. It's about equality. And this equality offers more freedom to anybody, the entire society. That's what we have to face, that's what we have to tackle right now. So really my recommendation would be to target way more the student circles, to try to see which kind of work we can do together, because in 6 months or 7 months we have all the election coming so far, so close to us. What can we do? And yeah, that's what I really have in mind right now. I'm really not trying to criticize. If I come across this way, please forgive me. I'm just,
every opinion.
no, I totally agree, because they're reaching popularity and stuff, so it's easy for them. But once again, one storyline is really hurting us, in the sense that when you turn off
when you turn on the TV, when you see a black girl on TV, she's either a prostitute or she's either singing or a boy on TV is either a football guy, a basketball guy, sports, or he's making jokes. So at some point, it's just not okay. And once again, when it comes to diversity, I think as many different people we have in the room, as more chances you get it, so it will be accurate to the reality. Let's give a really stupid example, but I think might describe what I have in mind. Apu, some people know Apu from The Simpsons. When we are the dominant, we just tend to go along with the story. This is how I see migrants from India. They talk like that, they speak like that, they eat like that, they always have all the same accent, and we all laugh about it. But at some point, we do have to realize that we can only laugh about it because we don't know anything about it. And the only one thing we know about it is what we're being told. It's like the same thing. We also are dominant somehow as straight people. Let's say, I don't see any gay guy going to another dude and saying, "How did you know it was straight?" But we do say stupid stuff to like sometimes to gay guys. When did you know you're gay? But it is stupid, but this stupidity only comes from ignorance. Because these words do not talk to one another that often. So when you don't know something, you're acting stupid. And you're asking stupid questions like, people are like, "Oh, it's so funny, you don't have an accent when you talk about you don't have an accent." I do have an accent. You do have an accent too. But in movies, again, when you see a black guy, yeah, he just comes out of this and that and that. And a lot of false information are given. Here in Europe, the three top countries, here in Belgium, are not enough. But go and say that to someone, they will never believe that. They will never, ever believe that. Why is that? Because we like to show one story and one story only. Why is it no African descent in politics? Because they don't see themselves over there. So they don't even think that they belong there. This is not where I belong. I belong in Manchester City, Manchester United, and Chelsea, and whatever stuff like that. This is where I belong. Because nobody else looks like us. Like, nobody looks like a girl in power. Why can I identify myself to Angela Merkel, but you, as a white girl, cannot identify yourself to Michelle Obama? That's exactly the same thing. People taught us that everybody can identify to white is universal. The rest is no trendy. So we really need to talk about it because it's not only about the way we live, that also impacts the education and the way young children see themselves and see where they can go, what they can do, and what are the possibilities for them. It is way more bigger than what we're talking about here right now. And I think we themselves do not even realize that sometimes. So I'm going to stop. Thank you.
Excuse me. I just want to add a last point because of what she said, because she made some real good point on a lot of things. I could not, I couldn't talk the way she, make some statement that she did, but I mean, we have to remember something. Maybe a lot of you don't know that the CEO of Credit Suisse is a black man,
CEO of what?
Of Credit Suisse.
Okay,
Credit Suisse, yes. Tijani Chiang. I want to quote him and add him like an example. I mean, he's a great banker. He did a lot of things in France, but they didn't, recognize him as the way, he was handling the banking system. So Switzerland take him, and now he's the CEO of Credit Suisse for, many years right now. We can take him, take him just Hidden Jam, and many other CEOs are from African descent. The difference with them is they don't have really the same, I mean, the scale of popularity is not the same with those in entertainment. If we can, uplift them a little more, I mean, not little, but really more, we will give to the youth a great panel of, you can be a banker if you want. Actually, the mayor of Kinshasa is now company, right? You can also be a mayor right now. I mean, you see, is that, right? So, to uplift many African descent from not only in entertainment, because in entertainment we don't need to uplift them; they are already well known. It will give something new to the youth because they are too much focused on entertainment than the other. There are many African descent who are making great figures, even in business and everything out there, but they don't have those popularity. You just need to understand.
I just want to do something that maybe because it's important because what you're saying was it's interesting, it's important. You can show somebody, say, look, he's black and you can be like her. That's true. But when I lived and I grew in Mozambique all my life. One of the things that I saw that in Mozambique is because we already start studying stories and things that are not from Mozambique. And if we start like this, it's impossible that you're going to, even if you look, hey, look, black like you, or you're going to be like me. But there's something that's, how do you say right? Yeah, you have seen. Roots. That's most important. That's important because it's how you feed yourself, how you grow, how you feel the things, And then even if you show there's and this work of use people that you have to do, it's deeper, It's not like just show. Then I guess that if we start young and not start first and second work and start our own story because we do have it. You're gonna feel yourself good on yourself. You don't need to be in some place and say, hey, I'm black. You don't need it because it's just you. It's just you. For example, those kind of meetings I never participated in Mozambique because it don't happen because we just go. We don't we don't see this different black people, white people, why doesn't exist. We grow with white people in my neighborhood, Chinese no, Indian, Arabian, and we grow together. We don't discuss this kind of things. We just
do Arabian.
Because the stereotype. That's the stereotype, right? That's the stereotype.
No, it's not. Because they drink beer. And then we don't kind of things. And being black, I'm starting now. I have to be black. But in Mozambique, we don't discuss those kind of things.
They don't
Because
care.
you're the norm.
Huh?
You're the norm over there. You're not the exception.
And it's even more than that in the education system because this is something I think that we are learning about even European history as well. And now there used to be European heroes and things like that, which we don't have here because if we talk about seeing diversity in the day-to-day, I think everyone is seeing at least one black person in their life, except if you live in a really small village somewhere, I don't know where, seriously. But seriously, I think it's more than that. It's more about seeing the person. It's more about how you learn the history of the person. Because now that you say that, I grew up also for a few years in Africa, and I learned more about French history than any African country, actually. I was going to see Africa in the continent, but even one country, I didn't learn anything about it. But it kind of draws some highlights on how it works in Europe and how European societies created themselves. And this is something that is missing too, actually. So you were talking about the predecessor guy.
Yes.
A lot of them actually. I was even talking about South Group, something that is located by the Nelson Zoo, if I'm not wrong, and Donald Cabu, something is from Madagascar. But still, it's private sector, it's banking, so it's still business. It has nothing to do with political youth. So now we have to find some political figures also to create those kind of, role models and not stay in business or entertainment. So it's really important, like she said, that you find the right person to vehiculate, to spread the right message. But it's true, it's linked to education. This is why you don't have this. If you see Apu every day and you see Kiwiko also every day, and you learn nothing about other, African figures, political figures, it's impossible for you to even take people seriously.
It's only one storyline. We need
That's
to change
it's
the
not even
narrative.
storylines.
Because someone else is always talking about
And in a negative way.
Yeah, but not even this, we need to change the narrative. And it's the same with women. That's why I do really highly believe in intersectionality, because
it's really
it all
important.
come across somehow, and nothing just exists on its own. Like racism exists on its own, discrimination exists on its own, or sexism exists on its own. Obviously we start somehow, start somewhere, and trying to spread the word.
It's really true, because I was talking about even the LGBT community throughout this. Yeah. A lot of things. Sorry. And there is a lot of racism in that community as well. And it's really now that I'm talking about diversity, representation in the higher sphere, things like that. So yeah, it's a long way to go.
But again, like just to add to what you were saying, on panels about different topics, the only time they invite the CEO of countries is when it's about inclusivity.
Yep.
When it's time to talk about it, not actually come up with actual plan. And maybe that's where it starts. We know Bill Gates, we know all their faces. We know, even if we don't know their names, like the Apple CEO, I don't know his name, but I see him as organizer. I know he has Iranian ancestry. We know all this, so we know Iranians can make it. We know migrants can make it, but what we don't know is that people of Asian descent or people of African descent can make it, because even if some of them have made it, we still are not inviting them, they are not invited to panels in general.
But you're right, I think you were mentioning that this is private sector and it's still not the public sector. However, I do think that it goes together. There is like a big impact that one has on the other and the other way around. And I think both things have to be taken together. And if you want to go and highlight some the representation of one community, I think precisely we should not try to separate private from public, because it would just mean because in politics in general, you wouldn't do it. Whether you talk about I don't know, the CEO of some very big bank or something, that you would discuss that in politics as such, and you wouldn't go oh, but that's private sector, so let's focus on public sector. I think both should be taken together, because as I said, they have a huge impact on one another, and I think we are that behind in terms of representation that anything that you could possibly be doing is already quite something good. So if it's private sector for now that you invite to discuss about these things, fair enough. Then you will add up on it, and then next time it will be about the public sector. And I think it's just having the big picture in mind. Is how do you make sure that you convey the right message to the young people out there that are waiting for role models to have.
I think one thing that I'm sorry, when people say it's different because it's private sector, in my mind and how I hear it, it's about money. When it's about money, I don't
We have
know,
the colors.
just bring it.
And you have a lot of
Very
colors.
different. But once again, we should be careful with that because you don't want to have the tree who hides the roots. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have one dude like that, you can always take him and see, I'm not racist, careful, but guy is perfect for the team. Let's go home with that. That's really dangerous. Because once again, TV, because we all watch TV somehow. If I see 10 gangsters for one CEO, it means what it means.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, they're gangsters. And then there is one dude to confirm the rules that they're all gangsters. And I have one CEO. So it is a little bit different. But once again, to come back to politics, what is it really different? Everyday life is about jobs. Everyday life is about having a place to sleep. And you need to face it. Politicians are in a position to make rules, to make laws that will impact that. Not private sector. Private sector, once again, is about money. You bring in the money, I don't care about the rest. It's a little bit, I'm looking at it what it is. It's obviously not only about that, but it's mainly about that. As politicians, we can be like, let's face it, here in Belgium, people from Afro, from the diaspora are like, they have degrees, like 60% of them have degrees. Belgium, from Belgian descent, only turn around 40, 37, 40. So who is the less employed? So we need rules about that. And who makes these rules? Politicians. And who can be in a position to say, hold on, I've seen that with my mom. I've seen that with my dad. He knows the languages. He has all the babies in the world. But even though, what is he doing? He's cleaning up the office. Why is that? You need to have someone who sees that firsthand to say that this is not okay. But we need to find a way around it. You need to, I have a friend, he was looking for a flat with another friend, two black guys. I just told him straight, you never find it. They've been looking for that for 2 months. Straight. Like every weekend. Find it again and again and again and again. And I told him straight, I have a white friend, she can go with you, that will just increase your chances. And it's so sad to say it, but 2 weeks after that, they do have, like, both do find a place. So what does that mean? We need to find rules around that. Because that's the everyday life. Finding a job, finding a place to stay, that's what people care about. So business is one thing, but everyday life is not about that.
But yeah, you would be surprised of how difficult it is to make it to
I am
business.
absolutely. That's why I'm saying let's not take one dude to speak about the other one who's been struggling just to find a job. I'm never ever going to say that it's easy for them. Never, ever. But I'm just saying that this is too different. Yeah. Like I'm looking for I want to be the CEO is one struggle, but is it the same as I want to find a place to stay? Come on.
It's basic life.
It's
Right,
basic life. Like I want a job.
But they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Because if you have more representation of events, so if you hear about the salon, the entrepreneurial salon, whatever happened, and you see on the list of speakers a diverse people, in your mind also change the images. So this is adding to the story, and you go back to so educating people. It's much harder with the older generation. So I guess this is the way we can change the mind of older generation, because this only, I mean, when they're young, it's not so young people. I mean, the younger generation, children, they're not so aware of all these differences. But at some point, somehow, you start noticing this. When I started primary school, I was fine. And I went to high school, I found out I was black. And then that's when the problem started, because you're nowhere in the history books, you're nowhere. So there is education to be done, there is
change to be done in the private and in the public sector. And it goes, yeah.
But if I may add something, just to say, yeah, it goes hand in hand, but to say that it should be worked on different paths actually. It can be at some point put together, but the way you handle representation in politics, if you want, and how to actually involve more the youth in politics is different from how you kind of mentor someone to become a CEO one day. Because I can tell that in business, like he said, the guy from Christmas left France to go to, didn't he even go to the UK or something? I think he went to England to become a CEO actually. It's not Switzerland, yeah. So he had the possibility to go to another place where he didn't have to go through the whole diversity crap, if I may say, CEO of the company. So this is business. But I can guarantee you, like a black person who wants to make it in politics, even if he goes to the UK, the story will stay the same. So you can't put them on the same. It's not the same.
I won't agree about this comparison. Maybe it's in France and Belgium, but UK is somehow a little more ahead in a lot of debates than the
We
rest
didn't
of
say
the
that. We didn't say that, but I can tell you at some point you will be recalled that you are different. That's it. And I know people in England too. This is why I'm saying that even now. We have a lot of people coming from the UK because they have more experience. They create groups and they regroup to create those kind of influence group to change things. But they have the same struggle. And this is the only domain that you found that.
This is back to what you were saying about working together, because
Working
have
together, but
people
so different in the way you handle it.
just people who if you have young generation working together
Perfect.
towards that, you have the British experience, you have the Netherlands experience.
You have to learn from one another.
Yes,
Definitely. Like, this is something that's kind of starting here in Belgium. So you go to England, you can just feel like, oh, going to be ahead for 20 decades, and I'm just starting right now. So you really need to bring people together, like students together from
I will
England.
add something too. We have to be conscious about something really important is the mentality, if I can say it in English, the mindset, the mindset of black people in the world are not the same. We remember we are in Africa, 54 countries. I mean, maybe 40, I don't know the number, who the population are black. And the mindset is not the same. People in London, I mean, Nigerian, Ghanaian, don't, maybe Cameroonian also, but don't have the same mindset as Ghanaian, Congolese, Rwandese, and other. The mindset is different. I mean, the most prolific, I mean, in business, for instance, are Nigerian. It's a fact because we can also add the fact that the colonization of Nigeria have been made by the English, so they have some kind of mindset of business that Congolese and other countries from France, colonized by France and Belgium, is not the same. We are more for administration and things like that, but not really for business. There is some some stat about Western Union. The diaspora every year, I mean every day, send money, have to send money to Africa, and the number one is the Nigerian people. They send about, I mean, formal, like transparency that we can see, we can know, because also many people send money, but by some kind of different structure system. They are the number one. They have sent like 22 billion euros or pound, or I don't know. They are the number one. Other people are, I mean, it's not really the same thing. We have to understand that because there is so much different kind of mindset in the Afro community, we cannot operate this at the same speed in business, in politics, and in every other aspect. So we can there will always be a community ahead, you know. So we cannot unify just like this and believe like we have to cooperate and do things. No, it's pretty difficult. Um, just by seeing those African people is really, really difficult. And I want to add something else. The last thing that I want to add is about we have to know that when we want to make some major move in politics, we cannot make major move in politics if we don't have money. First step, money. So business is the first step. Is maybe I can use the term roots. To grow, you need money. I mean, if you want to make a campaign or whatever you want to make, you need money. So you need some great people, some great African people, who have the money to invest on some politician and bring them and uplift them. If not, it will be complicated, right? So it's just the last.
And I think we focus a lot on role models. I think maybe some important aspect that we could do together as a community of people of African descent, however different we may be in between us, is coming to grips with the fact that it might be lonely getting there. We're not all going to get there together. I think we all have experiences of being the only one. But also if we look at the numbers of representation in percentages, we're never going to be 80% Black people in the room in European politics. And I think getting to grips with the idea that it might be lonely to get there and then more people can come in is also an important fact, because that might be a big barrier for people to start something. Say, oh, I don't want to be the only one in this organization. Well, it's something, it's not always easy and can be tiring at times. But I think that's something that we can all support each other in doing so, and that then you can also start spreading out, and the more people get a foothold in certain organizations, they can strengthen each other, and then you don't have to worry about role models from higher levels, but from more achievable levels. Yeah.
You say?
Achievable?
Achievable. So higher level is not achievable.
Well, it's not very realistic. I think there's just a lot of steps in between, and if you can see someone who's maybe 2-3 steps higher than you instead of 15 steps, it's easier to say, okay, I can do this, and I'll start.
It's easier to rely on it.
Yeah,
It's to rely on it.
And-
It's easy to rely on.
And also, I want to add that it also has to do with the people around you encouraging you, and not just representation. And representation also influences the people that are around you. So if I, for instance, decide that I want to be something that's not very visible, and I'm saying to myself, yeah, I'm going to be this thing, and I mention it to people whose opinions I really value, and they laugh, it's not going to encourage me to continue any further. So I think also having some steps in between where you can see, I mean, not just for yourself, it's always good to dream big, but also for those in your circle to really encourage you on this idea.
I think it's really essential what you're saying, because in that you can actually bring people that don't have to be like out of color. Because like the main support I've had throughout my political experience, I mean, none of them were Black, obviously, because that was the only one. But I mean, I found so much support of you should go for it, and you should like bring up those issues, and you should talk about it. And I mean, like 2 of those people are sitting in this room. But I mean, like, I think it's really important when you feel a bit lost about yourself, because you're like, am I entitled? And do I deserve to try and reach this position? And then it helps that you have people supporting you, saying you do. And those people don't have to be like people out of color. And this is why I think this entire diversity talk is also about including other people, because it's not about a Black fight for Black people. It's about a fight for representation for all of us, where we actually include the rest of the people.
You said something really important, because the problem is in our community, for you to get out, I mean, to reach a high level, high status, emotionally is really, really complicated because the black people, to entitle another black people already is complicated. I don't know, I just want to remember right now, from my experience, I don't have maybe one, maybe two, even the family is against me. I say, I don't know what your ambition is, but the problem is if you are untitled, uplift by other communities except yours, you will feel bad, really bad in yourself because when you're gonna reach, if you reach that status, you will just move out your community because you weren't there, when I was struggling to make it up, and now you want to come back like, you're one of us, but you never support me. Even in business, it's the same thing, you know. So that's something really important. We have to understand that the mentality of black people is is trafficated. There is some kind of problem.
It's just a matter of culture. If you don't believe in yourself, you don't believe in other people.
Yeah.
And then we grow not believing on ourselves. That's why I was talking about education. If you grow and your education is like you are not able, you have to start to work now to be a businessman. It's difficult. It's not because we are against you, but it's stronger than ourselves. But I have a question for you because I guess for you too, because I guess you make part of organizations, is it? And then I see this happening that we are talking about black people being growing and other representative, etc. But I feel that some of black people, or a lot of black people, are becoming too much racist on this thinking of we have to grow, but are becoming racist. Do you, on your organization, talk about okay, we have to grow, you have to be representative, but we have to work all together, including white people and whatever? Do you talk about this or no?
I'm sorry. Another question is not for me, but can you explain what you mean by the racism?
I mean that, for example, you were talking about houses, that you go, you don't find houses because it happens, it's real.
Discrimination.
Yeah, discrimination, it's happened. But if I have a house like a black people that I am, I don't have to, for example, if comes a white people and say, no, I don't give you because you don't give a black people. You know what's happening? A lot of people are becoming like this, now, okay, I'm going to do the same. And for me, it's not good approach.
That's the word.
Okay, it's not good approach because anyhow we have to grow all together. Yes,
Okay, to be very
No,
to be very
no, I feel like
to be very frank, at the moment in my organization, there are not enough colored people to be having this discussion.
the luxury.
Yeah, exactly. So that is not happening just because we don't even have the potential people with whom it could happen. That's one thing. But the other one, as I said, is that if you focus very much about this entire building a culture together, then it doesn't really matter anymore. Because I heard racism and sexism, and it all comes in the same from the same roots. It's true. And then in Jeff we tackle these issues in the same framework because it's very much linked. Whenever you have someone that is a racist, it's pretty likely that he's going to be a sexist as well. Not wanting to make generalization, but it's the mindset that turn you to be very inclusive in your way of seeing things, or not at all. And what we are trying to build is a diverse culture. So basically, where someone from LGBTQ plus community would feel for someone who is a black person. We really don't face the same issues. There is one other colored person that I have in mind from the organization, and he comes from let's say Pakistan and India, my migration background. So not exactly the same situation where what I would be facing, but you still feel for each other because it's just about you come from underrepresented group, yeah, me too, okay, and then how do we make it not underrepresented anymore? So I think at least I speak for my organization, that would not be the problem, because we are not trying to strive for one part of like minority groups. We're just trying to make this entire thing livable and enjoyable for everyone.
So if I may just add something, because she said quite well, but the thing you have to understand is that you create such kind of table of discussion because you experience a lack of representation, whatever you work on, and you want to change things. But the thing is, as long as you haven't achieved actually to fight for some rights, actually it's not only a matter, like she said, of numbers. Somebody said the numbers, who said it? Somebody. About the numbers, but about how you are recognized in the society and what is the place that you are given also in the society. And some other things actually that we were saying, for example, you were talking about your friends who studied political science, I don't know why you studied, but ended up working somewhere else.
Yeah.
Voila. But this is something that shouldn't exist actually. It's that you choose to study something because you want to work in that field specifically. But when you kind of face racism, it changes your destiny if you want. The thing is that we just fight for equality. That is all that you have to actually take into account. It's not a matter of taking the control of the society or creating the parallel economy or something like that. It's just about what are we doing here? Why don't we deserve to be taken into consideration as the rest of the society? That's it.
Something about this, what she said, because she said, and the other people now becoming racist said, oh, you didn't want to give it to me, so I'm not going to give it to you. But again, let's keep it real. How many people are in a position to do that?
You know, because I hear stuff like that, and it bothers me somehow because to me, it's a strategy to blow something and to act like we are in an equal position. When something is not fair and you want to make it fair, it's not about payback. It's about fairness. That's it. Like, it is not about racism. Someone's discrimination only and only exists because of someone else's privilege. Let's keep it real. But the first thing is to recognize privilege, first of all. Some people do not even know what privilege is. Some people do not even know that they are in a position of power somehow. They didn't choose that, but they live through that. So, to me, it's dangerous to say that, oh, I'm not giving it to you because, no, that does not exist. How many colored people head of HR? They're not in a position not to give it to you. If one dude did that, it's probably, it's not, I'm so sorry, maybe I'm going too far with this, but I'm not okay with people spread words like that because it only makes it seem like it's a child game. You didn't give it to me, so I'm not going to give it to you. It's not about that. When people say like we need more female into this field or whatever, it's not about being nice to women. It's just about the fact that it was not fair at the beginning. And we need to make it fair now. We need to make it equal. It's not about payback. It was not fair at the beginning. We need to work in the sense that now that is the goal, that is the aim, that's the direction we're going to.
I totally agree with you. My question was exactly if you deal with this kind of people who think like that, who do this kind
of course.
That's what I was saying. If you deal it and how you work on it, exactly. I'm also against this. That's why I asked it. I'm against that payback. I get the payback, but
and I understand because it's a human nature.
Je m'excuse parce que mon anglais n'est pas très bon,
C'est pas grave.
mais je vous ai très bien compris. Je voulais d'abord répondre sur l'argument de Jonathan. Je pense qu'il ne faut pas oublier de contextualiser les choses. Moi, je suis contre les gens qui disent Black people are. Non. En fait, le truc, c'est quoi? C'est qu'il y a aussi une question de milieu social. Okay? Moi, mon cas est un peu différent parce que moi, je viens d'Afrique. Okay? Et je viens d'Afrique dans une famille de gens qui ont toujours fait des affaires. Okay? Donc, du coup, quand je dis je veux faire du business, mon père, mon frère, mes deux frères, mes deux sœurs me disent ok, great. Et il faut que tu sois le meilleur. En fait, c'est une question de culture aussi dans la famille. Donc, moi, je suis contre le fait qu'on dise que non, puisqu'on est black, on a une mentalité limitée. Non. C'est parfois le milieu social où on est, comme il a dit, où les gens se sont contentés de peu. Et donc, on fait un effet miroir, on se dit, oh, toi, tu veux aller là-bas, nous, on n'a jamais réussi à aller là-bas, pour qui est-ce que tu te prends? Et c'est la même chose dans toutes les communautés.
Ma mère, quand je dis je vais faire du business, elle m'a demandé si j'étais fou.
Tu vois, que ça soit même un Chinois qui est dans la manutention ou qui est garagiste, si tu lui dis, si son fils lui dit, papa, demain je veux être milliardaire, je veux faire une application, il ne va pas comprendre. Donc ce n'est pas une question de couleur, c'est une question de socialisation. Pour moi, pour ce point-là. Pour rebondir sur le deuxième point, je pense aussi que le problème, c'est que ça formate nos esprits. Le problème de black people for black business. Tu vois, il y a plein de gens qui entreprennent des choses. Par exemple, dans les vêtements, ils veulent faire que du dashiki. Pourquoi? Parce qu'ils veulent vendre à des Africains. On est ici pratiquement tous afro-descendants qui portent un dashiki. En fait, on a une limitation dans notre façon de voir les choses. Et ça, c'est le véritable problème en business. Moi, j'ai commencé mon entreprise. Il y a plein de black people qui m'ont soutenu. Donc, je pense que c'est dangereux de faire de généralisation à ce niveau-là. Attention. Parce que moi, mon premier business angel dans mon business, c'était un noir. Un Ghanéen.
Oui, I will speak in English. Comment on dit généralisation? Generalization. We have to make it. We have to do it. Why? Because when you look at the statistics, you will understand that the majority of black people, want it or not, are limited. Like you said, the majority.
You need to change that.
I think.
Can you just give me the numbers, the stats?
I don't know the numbers. I don't know the numbers.
That's my point. When you don't know numbers, do not use words like
I'm responsible.
majority,
I'm responsible.
generalization.
I'm responsible about what I'm saying right now.
Then you have to back it up.
I can back it up. I don't want to justify, but
I think it's
think.
important that you do not end your sentence there.
Okay,
and
okay,
you don't
okay.
need to, because
Okay.
what you just said is very dangerous.
Okay, I can say. In theory, I think, I'm not sure about what I'm saying, but I think that the majority are limited, and those who are making it are few. And the problem is, like you said, because the majority are not making it, when you say that you want to make it to your, entourage and everything,
Jonathan,
they fight you.
do you mean limited financially or maybe
Yes.
everything?
In everything, financially, why African
But limited, be careful, because this mental limitation.
No,
you
I
are
didn't say
touching there.
mentally.
Yeah, that's why we're saying complete your sentence.
Okay, I can say
Do
limited
you have
financially.
facts? Because you
No, let me give you a sentence. Let me give you an example. You can have, everything. Even mentally, you can have everything. If you don't have, listen. If you don't have
but it's
academic,
great because everybody's against the idea, but it's going on.
if you don't have academic knowledge, go to university, college, and everything. Even if you have, you bright and intelligent, because you lack of academic knowledge in business or in politics or whatever, it's a problem. That's why some people, some African descent, their parents have the, can bring them in Europe or in the United States to study. Why they bring them out of Africa? ask yourself that question.
But
Because
have you
away,
studied in Africa before you say that? I studied in Africa, in England and in Belgium. I can tell you, the best study I've had is the most I've heard is in South Africa. So I don't think this is true. I think you must be careful. There are people from America who travel to UCT because they have one of the best architects professor there. It's not about as an individual. It's a big generalization that you're doing there by saying that we are limited and that's why we move. It's also part of this whole image because we are told outside is always better.
But
And-
somehow
But
you have to
that's
accept
a
the fact that how many universities do we have in Africa?
No, that is true, but
Exactly.
we are
We're not
only
discussing about that, I'm
all
sorry.
this.
But that's not what
this
I'm
country
just
are
talking
50
about
years old.
financially.
Yeah, but it's true. But I mean, most of our countries are 50, 60 years old.
I have to
And for ourselves,
I have to interject because this discussion has largely been about Africa and so forth, and I'm from the Caribbean, and we have universities.
sorry.
I know we are a small subsection of the group of the ACP, but I have to say that we have a lot of local universities. We are majority black, and a lot of Caribbean people study in the
but the
Caribbean
level
as
is
well.
not the same, I think.
Yeah, no, the level is quite high. Actually,
Because
the
you know
University
that.
of the
That's
West
what
Indies.
told you
But
that.
why?
Wait, I could give a statistic,
Okay,
I could give facts, I could
just-
give receipts.
I just want to make
The
a
University
statement.
of the West Indies was actually listed in the top 100, and it's a university that is in
top 100.
top 100, yes.
Do you know
in
where
terms
Belgium is
of, yeah.
in that rank? Do you know what?
And
the
it's
first,
lower.
the first.
Yes, but why we say that there is some top college in the world?
Because you
Why
opened that
top
door.
college?
But
First of all, you must understand how this is graded. So it's based on research. If a school has existed 150 years, it's normal that they have more research than a 20 years old school.
That's what I'm talking about.
So it's very dangerous for you to say the schools are better outside. They are not better. They have accumulated more research. It's true. We will get there when these schools are also 160 years. But again, this is about Black History Month EU, so we're not gonna go talk about really Africa,
Right.
but just to close on that point, I think it's really when you say something like limited and on something that's broadcasted that can be reused, it's really dangerous. So you must complete the sentence because if somebody goes and click this part of it, it's a black person saying that black people are limited and it can be used in a very bad way.
I'm not the only one to do that.
No, yeah, but
maybe
you don't want to be
I'm in Black British group. There are 40,000 people there.
Yeah,
say
that's
the same
a
statement
very
about-
good
They
example.
want to be part of it.
No, I don't want to be part of it. You know, sometimes.
It's not about you being the only one.
Yeah.
If you're here, you want to be the change, and be the change.
I want to be
Why
the
would you
change.
want to be following yourself? You're saying we have a problem, we have a mentality problem, etc. Well, why don't you change it? Study by yourself.
I want to be the change.
Okay.
You're right. I want to, but sometimes you make the statements to know what everybody think right now. So I make that statement to see and to listen what you're going to respond. Maybe you can say, yes, we agree with you. We are limited, but you said no. And that's a good point, right?
Based on the debate before, you already knew what everybody's point would be, and sometimes it's good to start an argument, but sometimes it's just we're trying to come up with solutions, not just put wood into the wood. Exactly.
So what does the solution?
But this is what you were supposed to do: come up with recommendation, not just fire up. And yes, it's important to talk about it, but remember, it has to.
I'm sorry, if I can say something. I'm actually really happy you're here, Jonathan, and for what you just said. No joke. I might sound crazy, but that's really what I mean. Because you are the living example of one of the very first fights that we need to tackle is the internalization of some bullshit.
She's
And
right.
you said it yourself right here. You said, yeah, sometimes there is some black people that don't want to help you in your community because they do not believe in you, but you do not even believe in yourself.
No, I believe in myself.
No, but you know what? The one I said
believe
yourself, you do not even believe in your community. Because what
Yeah,
you just
I know,
said
right.
right here is black people are limited. If some other white dude said that, because that's so racist. But you are racist against your own community. And that's the very first thing we need to fight is the fact that we did internalize some lies we've been told for so long that at some point we are the very first one who gonna doubt our own community. You know what? Like, there is something made by some, let's say, you have a company, whatever you're doing. You coming to me, I might be doubting, like, I don't know, this nigga's gonna take my money. That's true.
She's right.
No.
You're right.
But you know what?
You're right. That is
Because some
exactly what
stuff
happened.
we put into our mind and to doubt ourselves, and you just proved it by everything you said is right here. Another dude will come with his money and be like, oh, yeah, he's looking quite, I don't know, trustworthy. What is it? He has a better financial plan than the other one, but somehow, since he's brownish, do not quite believe he's gonna make it. And you teach that to your kids. And you teach that to women in the same way. We're more willing to trust a man than another girl. Why? Why is that? Because we make it better in mind. It was a very long time ago. And you are nourishing, flowering, all of it. It's really highly dangerous.
I can change that. I believe, community, we can make it, we can do it. We can do it,
If
we
I
prove
may,
that we can do it.
we've drifted
I have
very
faith in our
far
community.
from recommendations that will help
It
us.
is a recommendation to
Well,
work on the mentalities
the
really
mentality
early
indeed.
on.
We'll write it down.
This is where the
But I
books are
think-
important.
Really early on. So I'm really happy he said all the things that he said.
But I think we're starting to drift a bit. So if anyone still has something to add to as a recommendation for a social question or anything, before we move on to maybe a more informal discussion of what we've had. Yes.
Yeah, thanks. It's a question really.
Excuse me, I'm very sorry for disrupting the relationship with the girl. So,
Thank you for making it.
Yeah, thanks for the good discussion, for your contributions as well. It's been I think, very enlightening as well for us and thinking about what we do as an organization. My question is a bit really coming back to the topic where you started, political representation at the European elections, and picking up on a few things you said earlier on the panel as well. That really all the aspects that make it easier for black people to make it in organizations and in politics are probably the same things that make it easier for women to make it in politics, or other minorities to make it in politics or in public administration. And picking up on that, the question for me is really, isn't the European Union in a way an embodiment of exactly those ideas and values? Because the racisms that are being fought in the European Union and in the Parliament, where indeed you have very few black people, but you have Roma people, you have Polish people, and they face racism as well. I mean, some of the most wild racist incidents in the UK are against Polish people. And so I see there is a potential. It's not necessarily going that way, but there is a potential for the European Union to be a project that is exactly supporting these ideas, values that are about openness, about inclusion, about background blindness, and that oppose the ideas of ethno-nationalism and of closed communities. But in a way, I mean, it also needs to become that project. And what I find sometimes a bit worrisome or sad, at least, is that when you ask representatives of black communities, they don't feel European. They feel perhaps British, but they don't feel European. So they vote Brexit. And the same thing happens in other countries as well. And so I'm wondering what can be done in our organization, but also more widely, for black people to somehow take ownership of the European project and develop a European identity that's not an ethnocentric European identity, but a European identity in the sense of European values of openness and inclusiveness. So that would be my question to the panel, but also to everybody else.
If I can weigh in, the thing is that European Union usually function with the principle of subsidiarity, which is policy and improvements need to be made to the closest level to the people. So the change has to be made and done at the local, and then at the regional, and then at the country level. And from that point on, I think the European Union will be able to follow the leadership. So that's why we are somehow here, because us being involved in local politics, regional politics, and national politics is the first step forward to get that kind of accomplished. So if we are able to kind of change and influence things at the local, regional, and maybe national level, maybe the European Union will follow up after that. I think that's my point. That's honestly think. I don't know if someone else has a point regarding that.
I think it fully captures it, unless you want to add anything, but it will have to be short because we almost have to wrap up.
In addition to what you said, because I think it's really like the key topic is that some black communities in some countries already struggle to feel like they are part of the national community. So if you add up on like the European one, it feels even further. Yeah. And the second aspect is that the way the European project is sold is super biased. And I mean, it's okay if you feel comfortable enough to try to put yourself in this picture, but if you come from a background where, I mean, for instance, I had like the possibility to feel okay because I have one side that is part of this like white history. But if both of your parents are black, for instance, and you see like the entire reasoning and communication that comes made by EU institutions, by like the people that are supposed to sell like the project at its core, I mean, like, then you don't really see, you don't really picture yourself in this. And if you add this up to the two previous points, then you just like give up on the EU level and you just try to focus on local elections.
Yeah. Thank you for your question and the answers. I'd like to remind you all that there will be a task force following up on recommendations made. So if you still have more ideas, feel free to share them with the ACP-YPN team. They'll be more than happy to read them. And if you're interested in joining the task force, you can also address them for the future. Thank you so much for being very active participants. I hope you enjoyed the discussion.
Thank you, There's tea and coffee if you want to continue the discussion. And for those who want to join the task force, there is a. Just write down your name here. That's okay. Thank you. Maybe you want to put in all your students. No, she said that you need to reach the student, and it's very difficult. I'm not going to lie. It's very. The students' body. It's very difficult to reach them. Maybe we're not.